Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Welcome to the Halcyon Show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? My name's Lorne, I'm the host, Halcyon Show. It's been a trip the last couple of days. I've managed to upload 4 videos in the space of 2 of them, and now I'm trying to play multiple games to try and have more material to review more games. Currently playing a beat 'em up called Chipmunks, so hopefully I'll have a review of that in the next day or 2. But I figured, because my reviews have been super short and they're not usually that way, I figured I'd better embellish on them a little bit and give you some context to some of the reviews. At least in the sense of trying to give you a bit more detail on each game, because usually I would go into a tremendous amount of detail for each game that I review, so I feel like I'm shortchanging the devs a little bit here. So let's start with Rude Races. Famous Dog Studios. So this game I've been playing for, I don't know, the better part of a couple of months. I just never got around to playing it all that much until recently when I started getting through the levels. I think I made it to maybe the 4th or 5th out of the set of campaign modes. It's a really fun game. I've had some feedback from a couple of people saying it's a reasonably straightforward or simple game, or the controls are too simple for them. I would say the same thing. I would say that the campaign mode only really gets interesting around the 3rd, because then what happens is the game introduces things like police cars, and the 5th one I think has ramps and things of that nature. So it becomes a lot more complicated and convoluted and more challenging as well. So the advice I give you with Rude Races is if you're not happy with the way it plays initially, at least stick with it. You can blast through those early phases and get through it and it becomes much more fun at that point. So I had a conversation with the devs on this one. So they gave, again, like with always, I try to give the devs an opportunity to sort of speak their mind when it comes to the game and give me some input into what made it and all the rest of the sort of jazz. So let's have a look. So the guys at Famous Dog. Yeah, Famous Dog. At Famous Dog. So I ask questions. So, and they put this together from their press kit. So he's pasted it below. So a while ago they developed a Demolition Derby style game for mobile called Mean Machines, which sounds dope, by the way. I loved Destruction Derby back in the day. Racing genre, which was mainly dominated by hyper-casual games at the time. Always loved the idea of creating a racing experience which at its core was simple, which this game really is, but at the same time had the capacity to offer great excitement through over-the-top action with its staple of Demolition Derby, professional wrestling, etc. Plenty of explosions, giant metal cutters, cop chases, detonators, and a whole bunch of other crazy contraptions. We wanted to bring some culture and innovation to racing games on mobile. As time progressed, we realised that the audience in the mobile segment was becoming increasingly focused on simpler games, complex physics and mean machines, meme curve. So yeah, they're basically saying that they were trying to target it to an even more casual audience, which is why, again, the simplicity of the game controls is probably a criticism for some PC gamers, as opposed to mobile players. I can see that criticism being held. Then the development shifted to the bikes in 2018. Spent time along mobile projects. In short, our ambition with Rude Races was to make a fun racing game that we could keep users engaged with a tremendous variety of the types of events. A proper racing game where melee combat was deeply ingrained into its basic concept. So yeah, I'd agree with that sentiment to a certain degree. I mean, my main criticisms of the game, which I didn't go into a tremendous amount of detail in the review, is that the combat becomes a little too oversimplified. So you have the edge on most of your enemies in the sense that you can utilise a melee attack before they even really have a chance to reprise, especially when you've only got maybe 1 or 2 combatants to worry about. Let me just move camera and change my position. I've got the light there like I'm Christ or something. Yeah, so the combat of the game is a little too oversimplified for my taste. I would prefer the game to have utilised things like projectiles to make it more interesting, because I feel like the rubber banding that the game has, so the way that the combat integrates is that it's a delay of sorts to people. So if you hit them, not only do they take damage, but they also lose momentum and speed. The main crux of the issue is that it has rubber banding, so no matter how quick you are, it doesn't matter if you're super fast compared to everybody else, you'll be caught eventually by even the medium racers. So it's frustrating at times because even though it's a quote unquote racing game, there isn't skill involved in the racing element. It's more combat focused in terms of its layout, but the combat is one dimensional to a certain degree. So what I would say to the developers if they were looking at developing a new installment in this is, again, make either the combat more dynamic or the racing more dynamic. If you want to keep this as an original mode for the next game to give the casual players something to get to grips with immediately, I can totally understand that. But I would heartily recommend having at least something more complex. If nothing else with the racing, add an accelerator and a decelerator button. Make the dynamicism of the combat in the racing as much as just being able to press an attack button. Projectiles might ruin the flow of the game, I understand that. But again, the comparison I make is with Mario Kart because of the power-ups. The power-ups harken back to Mario Kart. Some of the other thoughts on the game, again, the criticism where it was hard to get to grips. Again, I had to unlock a fair amount in the game before I felt competitive. The racing carts or the ATVs that you use, the early ones are a bit too basic, and they throw you in there with everyone that's got super fast ATVs. So you kind of have to be uber competitive in terms of uber aggressive initially, at least, which I didn't feel necessarily. If you're going for the casual market, you need to make people feel like they're good from the get-go, and I feel like this game makes you work a little too hard for that. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, hence why I gave it a glowing review. I thought that once you get over the initial hump of difficulty and once you get into a realm where you are competitive enough that you can do damage and take damage and keep pace with other ATV riders, then it's good. The only other criticism I had was the lack of real depth in its customization with the riders. The riders don't really have any character to them beyond their aesthetics. They don't exclaim anything. They don't ride a certain way. They don't customize their ATV in a certain way. It just seems like a bit of a missed opportunity. Like, if you're going to have different riders, maybe make them have buffs for certain. Maybe they suit certain ATVs more, or maybe they add certain buffs to each individual ATV, i.e., aggressiveness. Do they take more damage, but are they slower? Is their agility less? Things of that nature. Make unlocking those characters actually worth it, and then I think you'd have, again, the depth of content that I think a lot of PC gamers are looking for. Because, again, you have to appreciate, I didn't play this on mobile. I don't play any games on mobile. I play all on PC. And the kind of market you're looking at there is the kind of player who's looking for a level of investment, something that they can get their teeth into. With me, it was progression, completing the game. I didn't end up completing it because I had to get the review out, but at the same time, I was well on the way to... Once you learn that you can earn money through repeating previous races, albeit, you have to really make it count. Like, to really make it worth your while, you have to max and put it to the highest difficulty and then learn the individual race strength. So to go back to the game, what did I have? There was the head-to-heads were the easiest, because all you'd have to do is, and because there's a bump mechanic, you just bump behind the guy, you can never really overtake them, they don't take any damage or suffer any speed. I think you need to rectify that in a follow-up game, is that you can't just bump up behind someone. I think that has to have a speed penalty of some description if you ram somebody, or it needs to do damage. There needs to be some way, instead of just literally keeping someone behind you like this, it feels a little cheap at times. So I think you need to add a penalty or something along those lines to that. But again, the main criticism I would have, again, is that lack of disconnect between what a casual gamer I feel would want and maybe what a more ardent player would want. I still really enjoyed the game, though, and for those of you looking for a Mario Kart go-between, I think this is the game for that. I think it offers a tremendous amount of content, irrespective of my criticisms, and I think that the design of the game is enough to carry it over because it's tremendously well produced. I really, really liked it. And not only that, the developer, again, really cool guy, Arsenal fan, wrestling fan. I hope I get the excuse to get him on a podcast or something along those lines at some stage, and we'll talk wrestling, we'll talk football, along with the development of this game. I think it would be a fun conversation. But that's Rude Races for you. Like I say, when I did the review, it was a 50% marked down. So that represents really good value for money, by the way. I think it was only $2 when I reviewed it. It's currently $1 at the moment, or something along those lines. So yeah, that represents really good value for money. So you should definitely go check it out. Muscles and Bullets. Let's have a look at the developer on that one. Tricky one, this one from a from a Google perspective. When you Google labor and nobles, yeah, it brings up some stuff. But the game itself, Muscles and Bullets, a 2D shooter, and again another comparison that was made was that it was like Broforce. From my understanding, I never played Broforce. My understanding of it is that there's more focus on platforming, whereas this game, the focus is very much on the action and the shooting. The backgrounds and the maps are really there just to facilitate the action to a certain degree, because the explosions take out large chunks of the map. So do the bullets. You'll find yourself replaying large sections of the map over and over again with your drill bit, allowing you to tunnel underneath certain maps, certain land masses and things of that nature. Criticism of this game, as I mentioned, again, I just struggled with it from a design standpoint initially, at least, because it was tricky to get the screen to fit my laptop, and then it was difficult with the mouse and keyboard to really feel like I was firing properly. Once I connected controller, the game felt completely natural. The guns, the switching between the guns was a lot easier than with the keyboard. The aiming was a lot better. The jumping was a lot better. So yeah, again, just touching on what I said in the review, I would heartily recommend using a controller. As far as the developer is concerned, fired back an email, a direct tweet saying, initially we wanted to create a small network 2D shooter in the style of old Soldat game with destructible terrain as our main feature. Over time, the concept of the game changed, and in the end, we decided to give priority to a single-player campaign. The general style of the game was borrowed from 80s action films, the series Thunder in Paradise, Hulk Hogan, by the way, another wrestling reference. Seems like a lot of these game developers have wrestling influences, which is great for me because I'm a big wrestling fan. All this led to what we have now, which is our game, Muscles and Bullets. The game is currently in Steam Early Access, where many ideas are still not implemented. We're busy adding new content and improving existing gameplay. Overall, we tried to create a fun and dynamic game that can draw players in. It's difficult to say how it will end and what our game will be after what game we will do after Muscles and Bullets. But we'll always put gameplay at the forefront. A tip for new players, the game should be played aggressively. In general, the main character is not too tenacious, but it becomes practically invulnerable that you run forward and collect bonuses from falling enemies. Yep, I would agree with that sentiment. As I said in the review, this game, it serves you well to play it in an aggressive manner. The criticisms I gave, what I would say to people that are looking for an action game is that this one at least has a lot of the fun of an action game honed well. So the satisfaction of the weapons is there. The guns sound big and impactful and bullish and brutish. I really would have loved maybe additional weapons, or at least boosts to the weapons. I feel like the power-ups in themselves are fine, but they become a bit repetitive. The gameplay doesn't elevate or progress. The only thing that elevates or progresses is the enemy types, and they become more numerous, they become more powerful as you progress. I feel like from just, again, my personal preferences, I like to see progression within my character or my play style. I like to be able to see how I started as playing the game versus how I finished playing the game. An example of this would be I just booted up Witcher 3 for the first time just out of idle curiosity to see how easy it was to pick up and play after I pretty much mastered it. I'd played it on one of the higher difficulties, completed all the DLCs, and it is still really easy to pick up and play because all that muscle memory is still there. Whereas this game, it's Muscles and Bullets really does suffer from that little bit of apathy towards once you start playing the game and once you start getting to grips with it, because you're expecting it to kick up a gear after that, and from what I played, it never really does. However, I will say that when I was playing it, it was tremendously addictive. That nature of, you always felt that last little, you could always do that a little bit better, you might die, but I'm pretty sure I can do this. So, Muscles and Bullets, I stand by the recommendation I gave. I think maybe I was a bit too harsh on the price point, except for the fact that, again, that production value holds it back a little bit for me. So I can't remember exactly how much it's priced at the moment. If you bear with me 1 second. Let's go into the old... It's currently 30% off on Steam as of the time of this recording. and it is currently priced at £6.50. So its original price is £9.20. So I don't know, maybe 11 or 12 bucks. Priced down to maybe $7 or $8. I think that's expensive because again, you're talking about the same level of content that Rude Racers gives you. The only difference is that the AI is maybe programmed a little bit better in this than compared to Rude Racers, I think, but that's a subjective opinion. So I think it's a really fun game. It probably has more casual appeal than does Rude Racers in terms of its pick up and play ability. And its difficulty will certainly promote replayability, but I think the reward value of Rude Racers trumps this in terms of content that's unlocked and that you attain through your gameplay. So, again, a good balance. These two games have balanced each other out, but the price point in this, I don't know, it maybe seems excessive to me just on balance, but obviously you'd need to be the judge based on the amount of content that you plan to get through with this particular game. But the developer, again, very gracious with their time. I appreciate that. We'll talk about that one last. Let's talk about Wanna Survive. Wanna Survive is a game I started playing probably the better part of 6 months ago. Again, hit a brick wall. Specifically, there's a number of missions that you unlock different characters. The mission that I got stuck on was a corridor section from one side north to a lift. This lift is, you get surrounded by a million zombies, and I'm looking at a couple of missions now that I never got to on the trailer section of the Steam website. This game is punishingly difficult. Mainly because I'm not all that great with strategy, it turns out. I know, as I said in the review, I suck at strategy. I suit games where you can grind to get better, because I'm willing to put in the hours and time to grind. And also I realise that in that grind I'm going to hone my skills on my playstyle. In this game, there really isn't a way of honing your skills or playstyle because it's very much a do or die situation. Either you get out or you don't. I like this game from this perspective that it doesn't procrastinate. A lot of strategy games, I feel, drag things out and they become a little bit tedious as you go on. This game, though, at least it has the decency to kill you off nice and quickly if you are struggling with it. I'd be interested to see what people make of a strategy game like this. Mainly because I feel like for even hardcore strategy players, this is going to present something of a challenge. It's hard for me to see people just blitzing through this game. I mean, maybe there are. I'd love to see if there's any playthroughs on YouTube at some stage after I upload this video to see how people have fared with it. Maybe I haven't been playing it for a couple of months. August doesn't seem that far away, but I don't think I've had this game. The release date of this game, by the way, is the 13th of August 2019. I don't think I've had this game for 4 months. I think I've had it for longer. Maybe I had a preview copy. I'm not too sure. But yeah, the other thing I loved about it was its aesthetics. I mean, I loved the aesthetics of this game. Again, that sort of top-down, 8-bit style, Japanese JRPG style inspired game. The soundtrack of it is really cool. A lot of the design elements. The fact that there is a degree of storytelling in there, but it's not at the forefront. I like the in-game mechanics. Again, the zoning that they've got for the range characters and the difference in abilities for the melee characters being able to take on zombies firsthand. I think it would just be nice if there was an easy mode of sorts, or a mode that I could crank down the difficulty just to be able to get me past that level in particular. Just felt like I really struggled with it. But Wanna Survive as a concept was a fun game. I enjoyed it. £7.43, currently 20% down, originally £9.29. I did speak to the developer on this one. This one goes back a little bit further, so you might have to bear with me just a second. At least I think I did. I could have swore I spoke to Pinix Games. Yes I did. There you go, lovely. Let's pull that up. So, Again, because a foreign developer to me, English is not good, so you'll have to bear with them. So, in starting developing the game, I just wanted to make a high-speed turn-based tactics game. No need to wait a long time. So again, inspiring the game was the fact that you didn't want to wait around a long time to play each level, which I can certainly sympathise with to a certain degree. I don't like strategy games that make you wait a long time. I prefer the live action style. Favourite strategy game, if you want to call it that, was the old school Age of Empires, because I felt like even if there's a large amount of strategy, a large amount of strategy that goes into those games, certainly a degree of action is involved, at least in watching the battles play out. So, would you want people to... So these are some of the questions that I asked. So, what prompted the development? Would you want people to take away from the game? What games and projects do you have in the future? Is there anything about the game you'd like to tell people? So, what do you want people to take away from the game? Probably just fun. This is Pinix Games, by the way, at Pinix Games on Twitter. How does the game compare to other projects? Didn't understand the question. So, let's just assume that they've got amazing projects in the future, and you should definitely go check it out, because if the quality of this game is anything to go by for any future projects that they produce, it's going to be absolutely spot on. Is there anything you want people to take away? Tell your audience it's a hardcore game, has a challenge. I don't hope people play it because they're feeling cute but stuck in the game. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm certainly not going to deny the fact that it's kicks your ass. It certainly does. It's a hard game. It's a tough game. Not hard to get to grips with, I don't think, but it is certainly difficult to work out the best strategy for progression. I couldn't figure out past that level. I would imagine, again, it's going to come down to manipulating. There are crates and barrels that you can maneuver across the map that zombies they'll either circumnavigate or they'll try to destroy. The best strategy I always found, again, was pairing up a melee character with a ranged character, because I felt that they could complement each other and obviously take down enemies simultaneously while not compromising the position of being overwhelmed by enemies. Which leads me, but by the way, as far as a recommendation goes, again, strategy players, absolutely. Casual gamers, probably not, because again, this game is very difficult, and if you're like me, who's probably at a lower level of gameplay ability, especially with strategy games, there's no way of grinding to get any better. There's no stat boosts or anything along those lines in this game. I would probably avoid it, especially at that price point. It's not a cheap enough game for you to be able to just spend frivolously and not worry about. So maybe be mindful with that one. And the one we'll leave for last, because... damn, I didn't get much. So, the last game, Exception, which... I feel bad because Baby Ducker and I have got a good relationship, and I strongly felt that there wasn't going to be a game that came along this year that was better than Dash, and Exception. Yeah, it came along. It was in August that I got the game code for the game, and it was only really in November that I started playing it to a certain degree. Again, I think I got into the 10th world out of 16, and it's such a good game. It's such a well-produced game. It's a lot of fun. The design of the game is outstanding. I was just really impressed by it. The games have similarities, as I referenced in the review. I don't have much input from the developer, unfortunately, here for some reason. I think it's because I fired off a couple of. Originally this was an example of a developer that had rejected my key request originally, and I sent a message just saying, "Hey, is there any chance I can find out why I was rejected the key request? Can I do something differently, or is it something that you're looking for?" Instead of addressing it, they sent me a key code, and I said, "Okay, cool. I appreciate the fact that you gave me the key code. Can I ask you a couple of questions if you get time?" Never got a reply. So it's unfortunate I don't have any input from the developer on this particular game. However, that's not to undermine the game itself. What I would say it has over Daybreak and Speed Heroes, which is what I referenced in the review, is the fact that there's more of an emphasis on combat, and the combat feels more dynamic the more you upgrade your character. The upgradable aspect of the character is really enjoyable. The story mode is really enjoyable. The fact that traversing the maps is a ton of fun because you do feel like a little robot ninja at times. It's a blast, man. And again, gun to my head, if I had to pick one of the two to play going into the new year, it would probably be Exception. But I can't lie and say that Danger Action Speed Heroes doesn't have a wealth of content that probably exceeds this in the long run. because of the customizable nature of it. Obviously, you can't build maps in this game the way you can build them in Danger Action Speed Heroes, and therefore that probably has more of the edge of it on in the customizable nature of the game, and the fact that the speed running is more honed and directed in that versus this game. However, the speed running is still at the forefront. The end of every single mission, there's that leaderboard that's always goading you to have another go at it. It's so easy to restart missions. The load time is extremely small. It's such a fun game, and for the price point, let's just grab that very quickly. I seem to remember it being reasonably priced, but let's just double check that before I speak out of turn. Again, with the reviews that I've done recently, I just wanted to get back in the game as soon as I could, so the reviews are not as extensive as perhaps other reviews have been, but that's a personal choice on my part. I might resume the originals, but I will probably keep to these sort of shortened review types for the time being. So yeah, originally £11.39, £5.69 currently priced. Considering Danger Action Speed Heroes was priced at around £15 or £15, I forget. And this game is comparable in terms of value, in terms of its content, its production value, how fun it was, and how many achievements there are. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem recommending this game at that price point. Again, if it's not the best game I've played this year, it's top 2. So, with that in mind, now that we've got all those out of the way, now that we've embellished on some of those reviews a little bit more, let's talk about some of the games that we're going to be coming up to. So, Ultimate Racing 2D is a racing game that it reminds me of the old school Game Boy Color racing games in the sense that I really am struggling to hit apexes around these racetracks. But it's modelled over like a a Gran Turismo style racing game where there's a lot of emphasis on the reality and the grittiness of racing. There's levels and stages, and you have to unlock or finish at a certain level in order to progress in the campaign. But there is an arcade mode where you can just select any car, any racetrack, wherever. So that's nice. It looks like there's a ton of content there. I'm looking forward to reviewing that one. Chipmunk, which is a beat 'em up game, as I referenced at the beginning of this particular video, which I'm playing now. Into the 3rd level. Unfortunately, because it's an arcade game, I can't simply replay it from that level. I have to play through it again, which is somewhat frustrating. The combat is a little bit monotonous on that, but I do like the game. I think it's got plenty of charm. Let's have a look through. So, Dear Leader, I am going to finally get around to reviewing that hunk of crap because it's terrible and I need to tell people about it. Agent 00111, I will get around to reviewing that one. I've had that one for ages. They Are Beasts, another interesting one. I have to contextualize that one as much as I can. But then you've got three games that I really want to get around to doing at some stage or another because I feel like I will have plenty to say about them. It's just I just can't get around to completing them. So you've got Savage, The Shard of Gozan. You've got Divader. And you've got Zorbits Orbits. Zorbits Orbits I actually finished a review on, if memory serves, but then I ended up speaking to the developers and I wanted to get a bit more information on those before I uploaded the review, so I'm probably going to re-record that one, adding the cinemas to the developer, or I will do a follow-up video similar to this one with that in mind, so we'll see what happens. So as far as reviews go, I will try and get them cranked out as soon as I can. I'm also thinking about revisiting games on places like Newgrounds and Miniclip because I feel like there's a wealth of content there that I don't know many people have really touched on in terms of the YouTube sphere as it stands now. I feel like a lot of that has gone by the wayside, and I enjoy going back and playing some of those games and seeing what new games have come since. And obviously more indie games as they come. At the moment, I have a plentiful amount of indie games to choose from. It's just tricky picking ones that are of interest. Dragon Clash is one, but I just need to get some game time with it. I'm looking forward to reviewing that one, though, because there's a ton of detail to it, and the developer's an ace guy. True Colors, Waking, and a few others, Psychos, sort of first-person games that I need to just spend time playing, but I just, for one reason or another, I don't. I'll try and get some game time with those today, as a matter of fact, once I finish recording this video. So, thank you for bearing with me while I've been sort of taking time off to do other stuff, trying to lose weight and get into shape. I'm a little bit fitter than I was when I did my last set of reviews, but it's coming to a point where I've got to start doing cardio. The weights aren't enough anymore. So, yeah, I'll still keep trying to get the reviews done. You'll see me popping up on potentially other channels as we go. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I appreciate you bearing with me. I hope you're enjoying your time off over the Christmas period. I hope you're looking forward to the new year, whatever you're doing. I hope you're taking care of yourself. My name's been Lawn Wisely. I think I'm going to bring this video to a close now. Go follow me on Twitter. I'm uploading there every other day now as far as updates and things like that's concerned. Yeah, I think that's about it. So thank you very much for joining me on this edition of the Halcyon Show, just kind of wrapping up those reviews and giving them a bit more context and detail. And yeah, take care of yourselves. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Halcyon Show.